Howdy, folks. This is David Cobb. I have the honor of serving as the campaign manager for Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka. And that's right. It is Monday night. That means it's time for another episode of Democracy in Action on the Green News Network. Because the revolution may not be televised, but it will be brought to you over the people's airwaves, the people's processes. We are using this platform to bring you news, information, and analysis that is not subject to the corporate filter. The Green Party is getting larger, stronger, and better organized, and we are not stopping. The election may be over, but there's still fight in the Green Party, and it is in that spirit that I am very excited to be welcoming to the Green News Network and Democracy in Action, Imam Paul Hasan. I had the pleasure of meeting the Imam in Cleveland, Ohio, during the Republican National Convention. I was inspired by his courage and his vision, his intellect, his deep commitment, the interfaith work, bringing together Jews and Muslims and Christians and pagans and non-believers alike, all under a basic premise of human dignity and love and respect for one another. Imam Paul Hasan, welcome to Democracy in Action.
Thank you very much, Brother Cobb, and you are my brother. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, Assalamu alaikum, Abar Ghani, Hotep, freedom of the land, and welcome to your listening audience and those who love freedom and justice. And it's honor again and pleasure to be part of this very important dialogue and the great works that the Green Party, as Jill Stein and Baraka has been doing, has done. And we want to continue to support, the efforts of those who have the freedom and the justice, not just in spirit, but in action. So thank you again for inviting us to the program.
Imam, I want to get into the work that you're currently doing, but I would be remiss if I did not at least take a moment to lift up the work that you and Greg Coleridge and the American Friends Service Committee and the Interfaith Ministries did in Cleveland, Ohio during the Republican National Convention, because it was really stunning to me to see the Alternative People's Convention that you and your colleagues and your sisters and brothers in Cleveland coordinated and welcomed. You had over 500, 1,000 people go through a people's process to come up with a people's platform. I just want to really thank you for that and ask if there's any follow-up that you want to share with the viewers of Democracy in Action about that process.
Yes, to Larry Bressler, obviously, Organized Ohio. We still continue to have meetings, and there will be some follow-ups. Matter of fact, we had a meeting today, but I wasn't able to make it. And they're talking about doing a big tax day kind of protest. But again, everybody's in the forefront of continuing this process, because obviously we know that we have a fight on our hands, and that's what the committees are doing. The Organized Ohio, Greg Coleridge, Amir Khalid Samad, obviously in Cleveland, Ohio, as we continue to fight the efforts and the things that are going on in Cleveland, Ohio, as well as throughout the nation.
So, it's that work that was based in the local and the state level that first brought me to your attention and got us together, of course, back during the Republican National Convention. But what I'm really excited about is the work that you're doing now as the spokesperson for the International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment, specifically the campaign in opposition to Trump's outrageous Muslim registry, or what I'll just call it, an effort to ban Muslims from 7 countries. I want to stop and ask if you could tell us a little bit about what the International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment is.
The International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment was an organization that started many, many years ago, matter of fact, in 1992, and it was basically started to bring together the gangs, street organizations throughout this country in 1992 with the late Omar Ali Bey, Khalid Samad. As a matter of fact, in the first summit was held in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were able to organize street organizations from across the country. And what happened from there, we continued to organize across the country. LA, Chicago, with Minister Farrakhan, Kansas City, Detroit. And so we were able to bring together street organizations to put down their weapons or their beefs or whatever had against each other, and to come together to talk about police in the neighborhoods, which culminated into the Million Man March. So the International Council, which was a body of individuals, street organization, former gang members, former bangers, whatever have you, became a part of this organization. And again, out of that became, first was the national organization, empowerment organization, but then it became the international empowerment, because there was connections across the water in London, whatever have you, that came a part of the International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment. So that's how the organization came about. It has been 25 years. Matter of fact, in 2018, it would be 25 years, and we'll be coming back together again, kind of to look at where we at and where we came, and where are we at as far as the cities. And obviously, we can say Chicago is one of the cities that we're concerned, and this is going to be our focus in Chicago because of the carnage and kind of the
so
things that happen.
It really is fair to say that the International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment was one of, if not the central anchoring group that actually helped to negotiate peace between some of the warring street organizations back in the 90s. I mean, those of us who were paying attention remember a lot of those so-called truces. So y'all were integral in helping to have that happen. Yes.
Yes, and I want. Matter of fact, it was a Hispanic community as well, and don't want to leave out church organizations, pastors that found. Matter of fact, it was Ben Shavers at the time in 1992, who was actually the executive director, president of the Urban League, not the Urban League, but the NAACP, who came to the summit in '92, and at Reverend Matthews Church on Woodland Avenue. And the gang members circled there in the church and committed themselves to putting the violence down, and then begin to increase the peace, in Cleveland, but throughout the nation. So that's where it started from, and again, we want to continue that process,
And so, and it's that process, folks, that or that organization, that process, that historic legacy that I wanted to contextualize to get into the call that you and your colleagues are now doing, which is a national campaign opposing Trump's outrageous Muslim registry, what I will call a ban. I want to ask you, tell us actually what it is that Trump attempted to do with that executive order, Imam Paul Hasan.
Well, the executive order, two things. The executive order, obviously, was the 7 countries, as you said, that you mentioned in your opening, that we bombed the kingdom come, and obviously it's a tragedy. A matter of fact, it's not a tragedy, but it's more than a tragedy. What's happening in Syria, and what happened is that the ban came about because he felt that we wanted to make sure there was no sleepers, or were going to be some way. Get into the United States and begin to cause problems for this country. That was the initial ban, to say we want no Muslims from these particular countries, or immigrants coming to this country, to come into the United States. Now he said, well, we have no problem with Christians, but we don't want any Muslims coming to the United States on this ban. Secondly, now, as you know, Brother Cobb, he talked about the registry throughout the elections, that this is something that he may have to implement someday if something catastrophic happens again in this country, and we can't. And we pray to the God of all of our understandings that it doesn't happen. But we know that if it does, we know that this registry is going to be implemented. So what we're saying, that obviously we know what a litmus test is, and we want to make not the Muslims in this country, African American Muslim, immigrant Muslim, the litmus test, but we want to make Trump the litmus test. And we're saying that to talk about a registry, to even mention the registry, and there's a his name is a Japanese. He was in the internment in the Japanese term in this country in the 40s, whenever it was. And he said, he wrote a letter. He had a letter in the Washington Post. He said that I will not allow the Muslims to be interned in this country, and I'm going to make sure that that's not happening. And it was an article in the Washington Post. His name is George Takei. I think his name is played in Star Trek.
George Takei.
George Takei. And that inspired me, and Brother Colin, to say, look, you know what? If he's talking about a registry, you know what, man? We're not going to let this registry even talk about this kind of registry he's talking about, because we know if they're talking about it, we know sooner or later, and if we know what we know in terms of the history of this country, that if we don't begin to get out in front of this, then we know that if it comes to the point that it does come, then we're going to be too late. So this is why we said, look here, no registry for Muslims. We want everybody to sign, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a nationalist, whether you a pagan, whether you have no faith. We want everybody is a Muslim in terms of this registry if this comes down to somebody signing a registry.
Imam Hasan, we're going to turn to some questions that are beginning to come in. But before I do, I just really want to say, as a non-Muslim myself, that this blind fear of the other, whoever the other is actually what's driving this. I know that. You know that. I think that most viewers who are being honest understand that. And as a lawyer, what I find absolutely reprehensible about this, it is literally attempting to make public policy a doctrine of guilty until proven innocent. That this is anti-American. And as an American citizen, I've got a lot of problems with U.S. policy, you know, the imperialist foreign policy that the U.S. government has imposed. But I am going to stand on the principle that the American values of liberty, justice, and equality, and the idea ultimately of the foundation of the legal system of innocent until proven guilty cannot, and we will not allow Trump to walk on that. So this is David Cobb joining George Takei saying, not on my watch, not while I'm here. So with that, I'm going to actually open it up. And Imam, I know you, so I know you can handle all of these kind of questions. So let's just sort of kind of get into them. Gordon Wu asked, what is the economic effect of allowing Muslims into the country?
Question again?
What is the economic impact of Muslims in the United States of America?
The effect of Muslims.
Yeah, the economic impact of Muslims. I mean, you know, there are many Muslims who are actually working, playing, living in this country.
Well,
sense of that?
Of course. You have Muslims that are police officers. You have Muslims that are doctors. You have Muslims that have thriving business. You have Muslims that give to this country that have sacrificed. So obviously the economic in terms of economics, in terms of what it would do to this country, obviously it will affect this country. But the Trump administration, that's not, as you said, that's not a concern. They're not concerned about the economics. They're not concerned about anything. They're not concerned about justice. So that's not even that's not even a part of the equation to even be concerned with it. The concern, as you said, is justice. The concern is that we have to mobilize whoever you are and begin to speak out. Because if you don't speak out, then obviously you're part of the problem. Dr. King said one thing. He said that the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the silence of the good people. We will not be silent and be inactive, and when blatant discrimination and potential oppression is reality. This is what Dr. King said. This is what we have to do. We have to again speak out. And I would suggest to your listening audience, the one who asked the question, that's what we have to do.
So I'm going to use this opportunity to ask Michael O'Neill, our awesome technical producer who is making all of the magic happen now. Michael, if you would make sure to put into the comment section of this live stream the link to the change.org petition, and I have signed it. I'm encouraging viewers to actually sign it as well. Imam, I want to go to the next question, and that is, do you encourage your group to divest from the direct Dakota Access Pipeline venture? And I'll say that's the Standing Rock Uprising. And we in the Green Party have called for the divestiture of individuals, organizations from Chase, Wells Fargo, Citibank. And I'm wondering if the National Council has joined that call, or the International Council has joined that call.
We're aware of it, and obviously we will join that call. Obviously, we support that effort 100%. Matter of fact, some of us were even trying to, when Obama was still president, and they were trying to, get them to stop, to continue with the pipeline. We said that we were 100% behind that effort, and we encourage, in the Muslim community, and not just in the Muslim community, to not support that effort, to support what is going on there, and support, the aspirations of the Native Americans.
And I'll recall, and again, to circle back to that People's Platform that you were instrumental in helping to facilitate, the Interfaith call was actually made specifically opposing both the Dakota Access Pipeline and lifting up the rights of our indigenous sisters and brothers. So this is not something that you or the International Council are new to.
Right.
Carol Schilling asked, could you speak to our nation's constitutional safeguards protecting U.S. citizens from religious tyranny to help people understand and not be afraid of people of different belief systems?
Well, that's a tricky one, Brother Cobb. You probably can speak to that as well. In a lot of cases, on the constitutionality of our rights, you'll find that specifically our immigrant brothers and sisters are not cognitive of their rights and in terms of in this country. So what we try to do is we try to as much as possible educate our community with relations with different lawyers across this country who have joined on to help those individuals I think when the ban came down, was stuck in airports, and you had a groundswell of lawyers and that came across the country and assisted in that process. So those are kind of things that we do. We have, CARE, which is a large organization in this country. They've taken the mantle in assisting in those matters and those concerns. So we're pretty comfortable, and we're pretty secure that those efforts will continue to fight those individuals who don't understand the constitutionality of the rights in this country.
So, Imam, I got to give you a hometown shout out. Donna Alvarez writes in to say, lived in Eastside Cleveland, remember Bay. So
remember
Bay.
Remember Bay?
Bay, B-E-Y. That was the uprising there. So, but a former Clevelander is lifting up some of the struggles from your community.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge Tim Simon, who doesn't have a question, but Tim, thank you so much. He writes in to say, enough divide and conquer. Let's start caring for everyone. And Imam, that was, again, the interfaith work that you've been doing with Jews and Christians and Muslims and pagans and non-believers alike, secular humanists. I mean, it was really, I felt very welcome, and I think that every single person felt welcomed when you and your crew brought together over 1,000 people into Cleveland as part of that People's Platform. So thank you, Tim, for that shout out. Pete Sounds says this. Again, a statement, but I'll invite you to respond to it. Pete Sounds writes in to say, a Muslim registry is a clear violation of the First Amendment. Your quick response?
Of course. I mean, but if you have a megalomaniac who is not concerned, about anyone's constitutional rights that we're talking about, and he's galvanizing people to agree with him in his effort. Well, it may not be such a far-reaching thing to do if he continues, and as you said, the phobia, and they create these kind of things that to the American public, and when it comes to the point where it gets like that, well, it'll be a welcome, and the people will see no problem with it. And this is what we're trying to avoid.
You know, Imam, I really, because I think you really hit on something that I think, and as a lawyer, I really want to speak to this. This is absolutely, positively obvious, patently unconstitutional, and yet he signed it as an executive order. It was being enforced. Yes, we were able to get a stay at the district court. Yes, the Ninth Circuit upheld it. But I want to be crystal clear about something. As a people's lawyer myself, the amount of justice that we as lawyers are able to get in a courtroom will be directly commensurate with what the larger culture is going to allow. Because remember that the court said separate but equal are acceptable. The court said that no black man has any rights that a white man is bound to respect in the Dred Scott decision. The court said women are not persons with constitutional rights for the purposes of the 19th Amendment in Minor versus Happersett. I could go down the horrific court decisions and cases, and I think it's really important. Yes, we need to fight in the courts, but at the end of the day, if we're serious, we have to fight in the streets, in the pool halls, in the bowling alleys, in the barber shops. We have got to make it crystal clear that in this country, we are not going to normalize this kind of outrageous conduct.
Well, I mean, I couldn't put it more succinctly than you put it down, and I think that, and I'm asking that those that on the this link here is to go on to the site, sign, encourage those that to sign this registry, and let's make this registry a huge movement as the 4 or 5 women in, I don't know what state it was, and they end up having 2 million women or so come to Washington D.C. and it started out of the living rooms. I don't know where we're at, but we're trying to create the same kind of spirit to those that love justice and those loves truth, that we can start the same kind of movement with this effort if we can get those to see what we see. And we appreciate, again, the Green Party and yourself having it on to appeal to those that who love truth.
Well, thank you so much, and it's an honor to actually be having this conversation. Andre Moncaya writes in to say he had some very sort of what I would call bigoted comments first, but to prove that we are willing to take on questions head on, he says, okay, here's a question. Why do you fight against a Muslim ban, but most Muslim countries widely practice discrimination against LGBT people and Christians? What's your comment, Imam Hasan?
Well,
is it true that Muslim countries widely practice discrimination against Christians?
Well, that's not true, because in any Muslim country that you go to, the Christians are respected for what Christians believe. If you have those that in those countries who are disrespecting Christians and not living up to the tenets and the teachings of the Quran and Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, so for him to try to pull out something to continue to divide us, and you can go. I mean, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen in countries that some Christians may be harmed in some kind of way, but overall, Christians and Muslims live together in dominant Muslim countries and work together, and that's far from the truth. And again, that's part of the problem. And that's part of that divide that wants to continue to keep it like the way it is, so we won't work together. And right. I categorically reject what he's saying, that Muslims outright just attack and kill Christians. I can say the other way around. I'll say is more prevalent than what he's talking about.
Well, historically, that is certainly true, and between the Crusades and the
right.
One thing that I know, Imam Hasan, is that holy wars prevent peace on earth, right? I mean, and that's something that sadly, the zealots of any version. But I remember you teaching me something very important in Cleveland, and that is what the word Islam means in Arabic. Could you educate other viewers the way you did me? What does Islam? What does that word actually mean in Arabic?
Islam is an Arabic word. It only means the submission and will to do the submission and will to do the will of God. You know, and
so I just
some
stop for a moment, because when you told me that, it was like, for me, a very profound idea. Literally, the word Islam, translated from Arabic, means submission to the will of God.
Yeah,
like that's,
to do peace.
to do peace. It's like, you know, it's and again, you know, I was reared in the Christian church. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher, so I know the tenets. And just as Christ was considered the Prince of Peace, what was also interesting to me was that that Muslims and the Islamic tradition, that Islam honors that Abraham as a prophet, honors Jesus Christ as a prophet, and also honors Muhammad as a prophet. I mean, like, I don't think that most people in this country are just simply not aware of those facts.
Jesus is mentioned more in the Quran than Muhammad. Mary is mentioned more. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is mentioned more in the Quran than Muhammad. There's other prophets that are in the Quran, just as well as the Bible, that are mentioned more in the Quran than Muhammad. So that shows you the reverence that we have for Jesus, the reverence we have for Mary, the mother of Jesus, the reverence we have for Noah and Lot and all the rest of the prophets that came, that we have. So I mean, to say that and it says that we are closer to. I'm not trying to make this into no sermon, but we're closer to the Christians.
You can't help it, Imam. I know people like you. You can't help it. Go ahead.
I mean, it says that we're closer to the Christians in our faith. So we don't want to again get ourselves mixed up with labels, you know, with Christians and Muslims, because they're only titles. And what we concern ourselves with is, what are we doing, you know, with our faith? What are you doing? So
I want to say thank you to Noel Eddie Tucker, who writes in big support. Neil Hustas asks a really profound question. He says, in your opinion, is it that Donald Trump and others like him are just fearful of Muslims because of religious difference, cultural difference? What do you think is really going on here? And that's a fair question. I mean, it's hard to know what's in somebody's heart, but what do you think is going on, Imam?
I think that the fear of Islam is that Islam is a faith that respects and has a appreciation and love and a love and a grounded in peace for all humankind. And I think that the fear of Donald Trump and Putin as well is that a faith like that is a threatening in a way that it brings, you know, a kind of truth and a kind of working commonality. And this is not to say that this is not to say that there's other, you know, a fear, the cultural piece. You know, we talk about the fact that if Islam is going to, the Sharia is going to be a part of the fiber of America. All of that's not true. And again, it boils down to the fact that Islam is based upon freedom and justice for all humankind, and that's feared more so than anything else. And like I said, there's a lot of other things that I can say that, as far as that we can talk about and take a long time to talk about the fear that they have of Islam.
You know, I would be remiss if I did not sort of make the comparison to say, looky here. That would be like saying, well, Dylan Thomas who professed to be a Christian and went in and murdered those African Americans at their church somehow is representative of Christianity, or that Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the federal Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, is as part of some white identity Christian movement, that he represents Christians. So, you know, the reality is that the number of white people who profess Christianity, who engage in these sorts of conduct, let me be very clear. It is conduct that is illegal, immoral, and terroristic that all of us should be standing against, but we should be standing together against that. And the idea of allowing a lunatic fringe of any group to become the representative of that group is absolutely horrific, and we should reject it categorically.
Exactly, and I concur with that, and I'm glad that you conveying that to the people, because that's what it's all about. And I think, again, and you know what I mean. I don't think their concern is for anyone, you know, outside of that particular percent of a group that represents. I'm talking about out throughout the world. That they're not, you know, their concern is not anyone who is not a part of that 1%, whatever have you. So again, what we have to do, we have to organize. We have to, like you said, be on the ground, begin to stand up and speak out. Because if we just sit back and just say, okay, well, everything is going to be okay, it's not going to be a problem, then you know what? We just as much as a problem as Trump and those who are trying to do what they're doing to people in this country, not just Muslims, but all those who are striving. Look what's happening in Chicago. You know, we can go on and on and on and on. So I want to make that clear, you know, at this point.
So we are coming to the end. I do want to just give a shout out to Robin Khan, who says, a Muslim is someone who believes and submits to God, the very same and only God who created us all. Adam on up. The Quran speaks of Moses most that is known by Christians. So I just thank you, Robin, for coming in. Imam, we are literally out of time. We didn't get a chance to talk about the work that you are doing in Chicago. I want to let folks know I'm going to have Imam Hasan back up, because Imam Hasan is now working with Jim Brown. I don't want to sound like I'm too much, but I'm of a certain generation, right? I mean, the Jim Brown, right? The greatest running back of all time. It's kind of exciting to me, you know, that you're going to be palling around like that. So I want to make sure that we do have you back, Imam Hasan. Imam, thank you so much for sharing your insight. Thank you for the work you're doing. And again, folks, I want to ask you, please join me in signing the petition to oppose the Muslim registry. Imam Paul Hasan, any final closing words?
Want to again thank you. Thank Jill, thank Barack. We want to thank, you know, the Green Party, obviously, you know, and maybe, you know, we need to maybe take a look at the efforts of the Green Party and the kind of innovative things they're doing. We ask that we need your support. If you would have us to speak to your organizations across this country, we would be willing to come out and make our appeal in person if we could, because we know that this is such an important effort. This is such an important issue that we want to make sure that we can reach as many people as possibly can. Please sign this petition, pass it on, pass the word. And again, we want to thank you again, my brother, you know, Cobb, for having us on this program again. And thank you, you know, your technician for making this happen, because if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't have happened. So again, may the peace and blessings of God be upon you and your works, and continue to bless you and keep you in good health and spirits. Again, assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Imam Paul Hasan, who is a spokesperson for the International Council for Urban Peace, Justice, and Empowerment. I want to join Imam Hasan in thanking Michael O'Neill, the technical director of the Green News Network. And I want to thank you, the viewer, for participating in this conversation. Please share this with others. Please send it out. Remember that this is a source of non-corporately filtered news, information, analysis. We are building the movement for peace, justice, democracy, and ecology. The Green Party knows that we are not the movement, but we aspire to be the electoral arm of this movement. We're not going away. We're getting larger, stronger, and better organized every day. And you can be part of the solution. Peace.